Okay, so we've wrapped up our first coaching cycle, working on third grade narrative writing. So I wanted us to just kind of talk about what we learned, what worked and what didn't work
Okay.
through the whole process. So to begin with, what were the goals that we had at the beginning of the unit for the students?
Okay, we looked at the Common Core narrative writing, and we were trying to figure out what parts of that we want to use. So we decided that we wanted to look more at sequencing and using details and characters in a story. So that was kind of our goal to get started.
Right. Then we did a quick write for pre-assessment so that we could sort them into groups to have our small groups of, do we need to look at students not staying on the right idea, that they had 2 or 3 ideas, or details. Or was it just a running sentence? They just didn't have any periods anywhere. It just the story kept going. So those were things to look at.
Okay. And then once we looked at the papers and I sorted them then by those different areas that we wanted them sorted by, then what did you do with the students after you had that information?
I took the students that were starting out great and let them take off and keep writing. And then the ones that maybe they needed to focus on one idea, I took those students back to a small group and talked just about what it means to have one idea on their paper. Same with the details. If they needed more details, then I focused in on a small group and discussed that and showed them what it looked like. We talked about it. And sentences, if they continued to have a run-on sentence, we discussed what their paper should look like. And then from there, I let them work with me a little bit and go off on their own and come back to me and see if they were following some of the things we talked about.
Okay. And did you think you did the same?
I did the same.
With yours? And did you think then that after you met with them in the small groups to address their weaknesses, that made a difference in their writing?
I think it made a lot of difference for them, especially to focus on that one idea and then bringing in the events and the details to the story.
I thought it helped, yeah, I thought it helped a lot.
Mm-hmm. What do you think you learned about your students during this process?
That they need to have a lot more time writing, that they, but then, and the other aspect of it too, they did do a pretty good job. I didn't have to meet with everybody. Some of them had a good grasp of what a narrative writing piece is. But they listened too after we got in the small group. I felt like they listened to what we discussed and then followed through on their paper.
And I also took some of them that I felt were really good, sharing them without a name on them so that they could hear kind of what a good piece of writing was, and then maybe one that wasn't bad, but maybe had, so the kids could say, oh, I have a question there, or I don't have, so that they could just kind of see the difference and then go back and reread theirs, and yeah, guided them that way, I guess, to make sure.
Okay, that sounds good. Did you see student growth because of what we did together?
I did, and with sticking to one idea, 5 out of the 22 students didn't do that. And then after the post-assessment, only one out of the 22.
Okay.
And details, 4 out of the 22 was not met at the pre-assessment, and everybody met the details on the post-assessment. Sentences, 3 out of the 22 just kept having the run-on sentence, never using any punctuation, and 0, all of them met it on the post-assessment. And then one of my students used text talk like they were on their iPad or a cell phone, using some of the language you use, or the little, so, and then she changed that on her post writing.
So it sounds like
We had
they
good
really,
success,
yeah,
yes, I
they
feel like
really
they really.
listened
Mhm.
to what the lessons you
Yeah.
were giving them.
Yes.
Denise, is yours too?
Ideas 6 out of 22 went from 2 to 22.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Good.
3 for details out of 22 went to 0 out of 22. I only had one person that did the run-on sentence, so I have 0 because that's the person that I worked with
Yeah,
in the
for
small
sure.
group to do some direction, and
Okay.
he did very well.
Okay,
So-
great. So do you feel like this helped then for you to be able to score them on their report cards? That
Yeah.
it made a
Oh,
difference for their
mhm.
Yes,
scores
big
for that?
difference, yes.
Okay, good. What worked well for you during our collaborations and coaching?
I think you helping sort them out, that helped
Mhm.
for me. But then on the same aspect, then I didn't take as much time sorting them out on my own. I
Okay.
went by what you had sorted and met with the small groups, but it worked great in the end. I mean, it
Mhm.
was fine. It also helped at the end, after they got done writing, to let you look over them and see if they met their goal or not.
Mhm.
That helped a lot. I think meeting and talking about it helps,
Yes,
instead of
That's
just
what I
going by
like.
what I think.
that's what I
It
like.
helps
So
to have some
just-
direction and
Mhm.
some
Right.
communication between us, between you, to have some other
Right.
teachers' inputs on
Do
it.
we agree on
Yes.
what this should look like for a third grader?
Mhm.
And
That-
and making sure that we are looking at the standard and but also focusing on the skill to get to that standard.
Mhm.
So to have someone else be sorting that and helping,
Mhm.
I just think that helped me tremendously.
Good.
So,
Mhm.
And how do you feel our collaboration positively impacted the students?
well, they grew.
I know, and I think they had a,
That's
The
what we
post
want.
assessment
Right.
was great.
I think they had a
mean,
better, understanding kind of what narrative writing is and how to, what
Mhm.
steps they need to take to
Well,
get
and
to
I
that
think it
finish.
helped me be better at presenting
Okay.
of a narrative piece
Mhm.
and even the details that I'm looking for, so that they're very specific.
Mhm.
Then
Mhm.
maybe I kind of like it, but,
Mhm.
and
Okay.
I question, yeah. Just because you don't want to deflate the child from not wanting to be a writer down the
Mhm.
road.
Right.
Mhm.
I don't
Right.
want to do that.
Right,
Right.
right.
That's a,
Okay. What were any challenges or missed opportunities during our work together, or things that maybe didn't work out so well?
I don't know if it was a challenge. It was great doing the work and having you sort them into piles so that I knew what particular students to work with. But then I had to realize that rough draft was more to work one-on-one or in a small group with the kids, and I needed to remember to keep that so that they bring up their new piece. You could reflect of,
Okay.
the first part of your story is really great, so you wanted to rewrite that, but now the middle of the story, you missed some events. So maybe trying to help them put that in, that it's not just recopy what we talked about and it's
Mhm.
done.
Right.
They had to go back and really recopy, making it more published work
Mhm.
that will come in time.
Mhm.
They're 8 and 9 years old.
And maybe
so-
that's though because we chose to say, what's the first time, write a paragraph about the first time you did something.
Mhm.
So maybe it's just, even though that they didn't have to write very much and do the whole narrative piece,
True.
maybe it was they felt like that was it. I'm writing the one paragraph, that's all my story is. I mean, maybe,
Okay.
you know, they
I
weren't
agree. Yep. I can see
realizing
that.
that from this, you're gonna keep writing and you're gonna sequence and you're gonna have
Okay.
details.
Mhm.
Maybe our prompt wasn't, maybe we should have picked a different way
Different
to,
prompt for it.
yeah,
And that's
different prompt
something
maybe.
Definitely to look at, that
Yep.
maybe will lead to them sharing more and putting more details
Uh-huh.
and stuff into it. That's a good idea. So, what would be some next steps that you would like to do in coaching or just in writing with your students.
Well, I even think with writing now, we're going to be assessing it every trimester. So
Mhm.
I think from this point, now how can we even get them better?
Okay.
What can we do? What are the next steps we need to do to continue on with their narrative writing?
And now bringing informational writing in, what are we gonna look at that? But then you had said you went to a great conference,
Mhm.
and I think that's, that you were showing us, teaching the beginning and the end, and then filling in the middle.
Mhm. Bring in those
That's
details
interesting
and
to me, because I'm, maybe that's how some of them think, or they think of, well, I did this and this and this, but then they don't know how to end it.
Right,
Okay.
we really
Mhm.
struggle with
Mhm.
that.
So you
So-
already know that that's an area that your third graders struggle in, so
Yes.
we definitely are
Yes.
gonna wanna look at that. And,
Yes.
Yeah. So looking at the beginning of the story and making it for what you started at the beginning, you have to pull that as your ending.
mhm.
So teaching both of those kind of puts things in perspective for me of teaching them. But we'll have Dawn come in and do that. Thank you.
Well, I would be happy to continue working with you if you'd like me to.
Yes,
So,
yes,
thank you.
I would.
Yes, yeah.
Good.